Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, hang on a minute. I have to get something. Get Dr. Kosher.
Put it on your boot. On your boot.
My boot?
Yeah.
Hey, I turn myself off. Okay.
You may not know that, but back to this arm.
All right. This is just a recipe. Hang on, I have to get Dr. Kosher. Hang on. All right. Okay. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is one of my talents that I don't think any of you knew I had. Ventriloquism. Printmaking. All right. I'm Jessica Ganger, and this is...
Dummy.
What? You're not the dummy. You have a PhD.
I'm the dummy.
You're not the dummy. I'm the dummy. Dr. Kosher, do you have the bio that, Yevgeniya sent you?
Sure.
Hang on. Let me help you with that. Oh, that's not it. Let's try this again. That's not it. Actually, that's for Nicholas. Where is he? Let's try this one more time. There we go. There we go. All right. Well, I'm just going to put this here. You don't need your hand. All right. All right. Here we go.
Yevgeniya Kaganovich.
Is a Belarus-born, Milwaukee-based artist. Her hybrid practice encompasses jewelry and metalsmithing, sculpture, and installation.
Yevgeniya Kaganovich.
Received a Master of Fine Arts from the State University of New York at New Paltz and a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Metal Jewelry from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
Yevgeniya Kaganovich.
Has been an active art practitioner since 1992, exhibiting her work nationally and internationally. Her work has received a number of awards and has been published widely.
Yevgeniya Kaganovich.
Has worked as a designer/goldsmith at Peggy Robinson Designers, studio of handcrafted jewelry in Evanston, Illinois, and has taught metalsmithing at Chicago State University and Mill Street Studios in Chicago. Currently,
Yevgeniya Kaganovich.
is a professor in the Department of Art and Design in the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, heading a thriving jewelry and metalsmithing area.
Oh. You forgot to say total badass, great friend, and magnificent mayonnaise-based chef.
So true, so true. So I would like for you to join us in welcoming
Yevgeniya Kaganovich
to the stage. You're going to take this off my boob.
Well, I don't really know how anybody's supposed to follow that. First of all, second of all, this turnout at the end of the semester is a little intimidating. But seriously, you guys, Jessica and Kim, are so freaking lucky to have friends here too. Thank you. This is really amazing. I want to thank the Artist Now Committee for inviting me to do this. This is incredibly special for me. I'm sorry? Can you guys hear me? No. Is this better? Can you hear me in the back? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Good.
Thank you, Nicholas, Christine, and Nathaniel for inviting me to do this. I'm really honored. It's really special for me to be talking about my work at a place where I've been working for the last 14 years. to the community that has made this work possible, because my UWM colleagues, friends, and students have made a really significant impact on my work in many, many ways. I'm also extremely aware of my privileged position as an artist in academia, and I kind of get that idea of what it means to be an academic from my mentor, Yevgeniya Kaganovich. I feel that as an academic, it's my responsibility to make speculative work, and I feel that I need to contribute to the expanding the decorative tradition or the applied tradition, and try to expand its existing boundaries. So with that agenda in mind, my work is developed in three distinct but somewhat related directions. First is this very long-standing series of body extensions that display psychological condition and explore function as medium. Jewelry that usually explore cultural and social functions of adornment as well as materiality. And installations that attempt to locate the human experience within architectural and cultural constructs. So throughout this long-standing series of body extensions, I attempt to address the complexities of interpersonal and social interactions conditioned by the corporeal body. With all of this work, I try to explore the absurdity of our attempts to perceive, communicate, and understand. I think of these objects as body extensions that display some kind of psychological condition that reflects something about our interaction, and as projections of mental habits and bodily knowledge. The idea of these is almost the same, kind of our longing for communication and the absurdity of our attempts at it, with the resulting objects being the locus of these ideas. I'm an object maker, and in that, I want the art experience to reside in the object himself and not in the performance or documentation of that performance. I want these body extensions to point to the futility of the human effort or the difficulty of being. I try to make objects all one way or another that tangential to that tradition, whether it's through their format, process, even simple performance of labor, and locate them at the site. Locate them at the point of the body as a site of exchange. These balloon mouthpieces are these seemingly self-sustaining but ultimately self-defeating closed-off systems. Here, there's a significant shift with the scale of these works compared to my previous work, although the relationship to the body is still one-to-one because of that bottom imprint. This piece is rendered as a respirator mask with straps attached to it, so to make this device seem more believable, and by that make the viewer think that they can use it, and by that wonder why one would use it, what would feel like to use it. There's an impression of the face on this side, so it's clear that that's where your mouth would go. It's important to me that the work exists on the scale of the human body, and while that wearability is action or implied, it's important that the viewer can imagine putting it on. So by presenting these objects as a kind of trace of body on an actual scale, I want the viewer to relate to the futility of the human effort. The objects hopefully look like what it feels like to desperately want to communicate and not be able to, or to scrutinize something so closely that that effort becomes absurd, or to feel urgently vulnerable to the point of it becoming aggressive. This double balloon mouthpiece has two openings attached with masks to give a promise of some kind of absurd interactions. I've been really trying to use more loose ends with the objects and not to complete their total condition. I was also kind of interested in giving the objects both sort of a specimen and an artifact quality at the same time, so it would be difficult to identify them. You can see this piece is based on scuba gear, but even though all the functional elements are there, it's not quite right because of the color, the softness, and the flabbiness of the rubber. They're kind of like embryos for something. They're not really fully developed. I strive to create objects that are ambiguous in their nature, their functions hindered and their use frustrated, their origin unclear. I render them as tools and outgrowth, as devices and organisms. This duality is resultant in hybrid objects, which hopefully allow for multiple readings. I often think of the pieces I make as a ghost of an experience, or a blank for an action, or a template for an experience. I suppose these black pieces are more ghosts, shadows rather than ghosts. And I constantly negotiate the role of function within the work. I see function actually implied as a point of access for the viewer and an opportunity to evoke meaning. In many of my pieces, the function is at the same time suggested and denied, resulting in an object that's essentially self-defeating. With these pieces, I was trying to allude to more ambiguous kind of function and remove some of the direct bodily references, even though there's still a relationship to the body. This is a prototype for a number of subsequent installations. This piece is inflated with helium, so it elevates the mask to a height of an average-sized person, Stephanie, which is me. And it's tethered to stanchions, so it doesn't fly away. First thing I did with this piece is take it outside. I was really curious to see how the elements would activate it. And it really did happen. It was just kind of bouncing happily in the wind and just glowing with this beautiful light. But I was so concerned with preserving the little amount of helium that I had left, which was all in the balloon, and it was just that physical task of getting the piece out of the studio, through the loading dock, through the wood shop, out of the loading dock, out onto the bike path. You can see this is by Kenilworth. I just sort of completely failed to think about the fact that I was taking it out of this private art studio environment and into a public space without any art context. And it was just really incredible. Because I've played with display quite a bit before this, just thinking about how the conditions of display change how the objects are read. So I experimented with everything from scientific to clinical display, which shifted the perception of the objects quite significantly, but I haven't thought about the environment until this moment. And so it's clearly time to think about that as well. And it was just really amazing. The second we were out there were people stopping by and yelling at us from the bridge. The best one was this guy biking with his kid, and he said, "Is this science or art?" And I told him it was both. I don't really mean for my work to be funny, unsettling, ironic maybe, but it kind of always inevitably ends up in this place. So this is me trying to wrestle the balloon back in from its little outside excursion. I won. And so understanding that, that environment is very much contextual as well and can affect how the work is understood. I installed it in the theater lobby for the faculty exhibition here a few years ago. And so those of you guys who know, this is the theater lobby, and lots of people on campus cut through it without even knowing there's a gallery upstairs. So it just kind of plopped right in there, in the middle of the lobby, without any explanation, no tag or anything. And there was this object that was asking people to engage with this history that know nothing about, and they're totally doing it. And what it turned out to be was that people perceived it as kind of a functional scientific device, and constantly try to engage it. As with all the other works in the series, it kind of highly orchestrates your engagement with it. So the stanchions are open to one side, there's vinyl footprints on the floor. So it's quite specific in what it wants you to do with it. This is an installation I got to do in Michigan, where I had an opportunity to inflate 3 balloons and really significantly shift the scale. The balloons are about 8 feet across each, so 8 feet in diameter. So you can imagine that's really pretty tall. They really just kind of towered over you, which is a little disorienting. They're very imposing. And so exaggerating the size of created this tension between the imposing presence of the object and that minuscule bodily imprint. So having to kind of zoom in constantly between the macro and the micro was a little disorienting, which I like. Because of that, again, the exact indexing of the body, the objects are quite specific in how we're to engage with them, but the purpose and the implications of that exchange or that engagement are still very uncertain. You know, does the viewer supply the objects with breath, or does the object supply them with some kind of substance? So this exchange is really highly carefully orchestrated, but the implications of it remain ambiguous. So the resulting object is kind of a little unsettling, unclear, you know, a little threatening, definitely self-conscious, and not necessary. Whether the viewer acts upon it or acts upon the viewer, that engagement is compulsory. And it was just really fun to do something that big. This is the latest iteration of this project that I got to install for my solo exhibition in Florida last fall at Gulf Coast University. I've shortened the balloons, just the length of them because of the ceiling, which was quite a feat. I had to learn how to pleat latex on the spot. And it lowered the mask so when objects are in use, two people face each other. And you can also see there's just like a tiny little sliver of light between them. So they're almost touching but not quite, and that tension with the objects continuously moving but never quite touching was really interesting. My work shifted significantly in respect to function after uncovering an exhibition called Design in the Elastic Mind at MoMA, New York a number of years ago, and the writing of design scholar Paul Antonelli, who wrote the catalog essay for the show. She argues that in critical design, I don't know what's happening here. Oh. The mouth is not where I needed to be. Oh well. She argues that critical design or design for debate does not always lead to useful objects, but rather to food for thought. Its usefulness is related to its capacity to make us ponder how we really want the objects to fit into our lives. Okay, I can't see the rest, but it must not be important. I see the work of Paul Antonelli. I see my work paralleling her definition of critical design in the sense that it doesn't always lead to useful objects, or to craft objects, or to art objects, but rather objects that provoke thought. I want to make objects that the use of which signals and facilitates particular ideas about our experiences, such as these double mount pieces. Because of the absence of the straps, the only way for two people to use an object is to stand in very close proximity to one another, wedging that between their faces, which of course can be uncomfortable and suffocating. So these objects kind of beg engagement between two people, only to reveal the difficulty of it. The physical challenges of using them uncover the social discomfort with such proximity. I made a version of these in porcelain. I was really fortunate to be able to attend residency in Hungary, which was a ceramic residency, and so I got to work with this beautiful Huron porcelain. I kind of expected them to come out looking clinical or sanitary, but they took on this bowl-like quality. Just want to figure out how to get the mouse over here. So I've been focusing on function and its implications and possibilities as a rhetorical device. In the earlier works that you've seen, the function was suggested and immediately denied, resulting in an object that was essentially dysfunctional. So, like exploring difficulties in communications, I would make these devices that look like they may enhance or amplify speech, but upon closer examination, the viewer finds out that that exchange is hindered or altogether impossible. And so, after kind of thinking about this a little bit more, with this work, the objectives became for function to not just be alluded to, and not just be denied, but for it to be transformative, not simply self-defeating. I started making objects that, through their actual use, comment on aspects of our experiences and our bodies. It's becoming more and more important to me that the work is not read as simply sculpture to be observed, but that it invites the viewer's participation, whether it's actual or imagined. To me, it's through this engagement that the purpose and the implication of each piece are considered. So with this piece, for example, the masks are attached by a hollow tube. On each mask, there are nostrils that are open into the inside of the piece. So when it's in use, two people share a finite amount of air within the piece and their lungs. It's kind of urgently connected by kept at a distance by the device. This piece starts out aesthetically really similar to the other one, but it functions quite differently. There's this inflatable volume in the middle, and then each mouth is equipped with a one-way valve, so words, breath, air, whatever it is that goes into balloon and mixed from both sides don't come back out. So that brings me to this exhibition that I curated. It's currently at Yevgeniya. Once in a while I get to act as an amateur curator, and this project is something I've been thinking about for a really long time. It ties closely to my own research, particularly how function can be language and medium, and means of communicating or constructing meaning. It includes some older work that I've been looking at and been inspired by for years. That's been kind of part of my own research, and then also some newer work that I think are particularly great. So at first look, the objects might look like they're just surreal, right? They distort, they melt, they mutate, but they're not simply dreamlike. They're much more specific in the way that they construct meaning. Makers represented in this exhibition use the idea of function as a rhetorical device to produce what, to me, is an incredibly resonant work. In the objects in the exhibition, function is not simply a default or condition. It's not simply a utilitarian aspect of something, but it's a point of access for the viewer. It's kind of a signal and a marker for examining material culture and our relationship to things in our lives as well as each other. It requires engagement with and consideration of their expected functions in order to elicit meaning. The work speculate through and about function, establishing it as a language and a medium. The artists in the show are David Clark, whose work you see here, Michael Bates, Beth Whitman, Myra Woodward Gray, Noam Torin, and Alan Waxler. I'm not showing you any documentation of it, even though we have beautiful images that Joseph took for the students. I know a lot of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. It's up for a very long time, through June 25th. So that's why I'm not showing it anymore because of it. Because to see the objects in person is an entirely different experience. Speaking of things that are coming up, On Function is only one of 17 exhibitions that will be happening during the symposium we're hosting at the NMA Zoo Milwaukee. I know you guys in this class heard about it quite a bit. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. My colleagues have been working incredibly hard. Michael Bernard is our symposium coordinator, and Stephanie, Frankie, and Joseph, and Jessica, and the students have been working incredibly hard to put this programming together. I'm just super excited about the multitude of lectures and the caliber of the events. So we have lectures and workshops, multiple exhibitions. So please come. There is still time to register. We have time. I'm just going to go to the site, right? Oh, wait. It didn't go there. Well, I needed a hot clip. Okay, go to the site and check it out. It's really good. Yeah. Okay. You can just go there. I can never get this. It's not so much though.
Oh yeah, that's infuriating.
Sure. The Wi-Fi is down. In any case, comments. So back to my own work. I'm going to talk about an outdoor installation project. So the objects I make mark the body as a site of exchange. In installation, I attempt to locate the human body within architectural and cultural constructs, and consider our existence within our effects on them. Inhabitant Fest is an intervention into the unusual interior architectural space of the Shannon Wilson Center for the Arts in Brookfield. It's primarily a performing arts center, although there's a really big visual arts component. But the gallery is kind of wrapped around the auditorium, and it's this really nonsensical architectural space. And I felt, when I was asked to do a show there, that if I put a discrete object in the middle of the gallery, the walls were literally going to come down and eat it. So I decided I was going to assault the space instead and make us look at it, right? Because it's really strange. It's the space is carved with all these rectilinear niches and columns, and there's like slanty ceiling, horizontal ceiling, green wall, yellow wall, green columns, carpet. So I created the site-specific installation, which was a system of seemingly interconnected, inflated plastic volumes that interweaved with the space, with the building's irregular anatomy. They all originated from the limited amount of the horizontal ceiling that's in the space, then projected downwards in various stages of inflation and elongation, and then finally drop down into niches in these kind of pools of semi-translucent volumes that are all filled with these little egg-like volumes. They're individually inflated. So kind of like a spider might obliterate a corner of the room, right? They sort of fill in every niche, every nook and cranny. It appears to be an organism with its own internal logic that responds directly to the specific architectural elements, such as these niches and columns and corners, and embracing the building in its habitat, while also rendering some of its architectural elements as unreliable, or at the very least calling our attention to them. So by the implication that this is an organism, we only see a tiny bit of it. We only see a fraction of it, like a tip of the iceberg, and might wonder how much of the rest of the building it pervades. And also those volumes are strange and unfamiliar that we also kind of can't escape the notion that we're somehow responsible for their existence, and they might be related to us. Like, is our breath holding them up? Did this whole thing come into existence from traces that we leave behind? Are we connected through this organism to the building? Do we also inhabit and infest? It kind of suggests another structure for the center and one that's only partially revealed to us. These volumes kind of confuse biology and architecture and space and circulation. It implies that the center is more than an edifice for art and culture, but it's an organism that we are too a part of. And so, as soon as the piece was up, it started changing immediately. It started reacting to light, temperature, airflow. So some of the volumes got really bleached, some shriveled in unexpected ways, some really developed all bulges. And so this artificial thing started having a life cycle of its own and required tending. And that's regular reinflation, repair, cleaning, reminded me of tending to a garden or a pet, and brought up ideas about life cycles, development of disintegration, which are all the things that I wanted to deal with in the next project. This installation project called Strange Vegetation is a response to the decorative interior of the Terrace Decorative Arts Museum, specifically the Zubair wallpaper, and with its exotic plants and the flora-based decorative ironwork that is installed throughout the museum. It has the largest collection of cerulophobic ironwork, so if you haven't seen it yet, that's pretty remarkable. And this wallpaper has been just haunting me for years. I just had to do something about it, and so I finally got to. But both the wallpaper and the ironwork are much more about culture than nature. They're these cultural constructs of nature. Like the wallpaper is much more about our ideas of the Orient at the time than the actual nature that's depicted in it. And so I was kind of trying to gauge those ideas for this project. So this piece is very site-specific in response to the uncertain position of the decorative arts and the architectural interior of the institution. And I feel like the Villa Terrace is like a place, it's the Slavish villa right in the middle of Milwaukee. And I can't even imagine it at the time when it was built. And I mean, the place is like uncomfortable with itself most of the time, I feel like. And so I was kind of trying to engage that a little bit. And so this time it's the system of physically interconnected, identical plant-like volumes that are also made out of latex. The bulbs kind of extend upwards from this painted horizon line, so they kind of seem to originate on the ground, like bulbs, like some kind of lowly plant, like a night onion or something like that. And then with the native electronic system, it's activated through regular inflation and deflation cycle. My collaborator on this project, Nathaniel Stern, many of you know, designed the software and the physical system responding, or that's responsible for the organism breathing. And then Michael Serra also helped with physical computing a lot. But it activated the piece quite a bit. It gave it an artificial cycle, an artificial life cycle, and it also required tending to. Like, we had to wake it up in the morning and then put it to bed at the end of the day. But that life cycle also stands in opposition to the decorative floral interior. It kind of seems to be an extension and a mutation of the interior that it invades the space it shares with us while its artificial life cycle is adopts with the exotic flowers that are always in this perfect bloom on the walls. So it sort of originates from and confronts its habitat. And it seemed to kind of threaten its surroundings of this potentially unchecked parasite. So, thinking about questions of sustainability and life cycles, development and disintegration. But the piece also suggests that all built environments are vibrant matter with the capacity for their own movement, change, and agency over time. A little much of Jane Bennett there. And I would like to show, oh wait, the internet is done, isn't it? Okay, I can still show it.
Yeah, try it again. Let's try it.
the video too, so I don't have to watch it online. Okay. So the piece inhaled fully, stood there for 2 minutes, exhaled, stood there for 2 minutes, and over and over again. And the trick hearing are the valves opening to let them out. And that's kind of a comical sound when the wings flop on the ground. Wow. And that brings me to my ongoing project, Grow, which is a series of durational installations throughout the city of Milwaukee and surrounding areas. At each location, this kind of system of interconnected volumes grows over time, simulating a self-propagating organism in various stages of development. It's very much based on the Egyptian walking onion, and so it's a plant. You can see they're sort of bulbous. Grows a bulb, grows a stalk, grows a bulb, falls over, roots itself, grows another bulb, grows another stalk, and so on. And so they just sort of take over. Right? And so these small sculptures act very much like that plant. The layers of plastic are fused together to make this leather or skin-like surface. And then they're sewn into these bulb-like volumes connected with plastic bag thread and then stuffed with plastic bags, creating this kind of organism made out of a singular material, reused plastic bags. There are these official plastic bag recycling bins at each location where we periodically collect the bags and then add onto the system. They act very much like weeds, where they grow into any unused or overlooked spaces, like all the nooks and crannies, stairwells, corners, any peripheral or contextual elements that wouldn't be used. This project has been going on for a long time. We launched in October 2012 at the Linden Sculpture Garden, and it had subsequent plantings throughout the city of Milwaukee at multiple locations, and now also in Florida and Pennsylvania. What's kind of new to my practice here is a public component, and the public engagement really ranges from simply donating the plastic bags to each collection point to participating in these workshops that we've been conducting monthly at the Linden Sculpture Garden and also multiple other locations. And so we do these workshops of manipulating the plastic bags as a raw material. And it's just been really interesting to see how people engage with the project at multiple levels. But to me also, what started out kind of tending and growing this artificial organism ended up tending and growing a community. The attendance has fluctuated widely throughout the years, and also from location to location, it's changed quite a bit. But it's just been really interesting to see just how people engage with the project. So I have to talk about undergraduate research at Yevgeniya here because it's an incredible program. For me personally, it's transformed my practice in so many ways. I think, you know, if I didn't have the students working with me, it's not that I wouldn't be able to physically produce the work that I'm making, but I think I wouldn't be able to think of it, really, to conceptualize it. It's been transformative to my practice. And I think for students, it's this really incredible opportunity to see what a rigorous practice is like and be part of that. And so I encourage you guys, you know, anybody who's here and has the opportunity to do that. It's a huge mentorship opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to learn things that are not taught in the classroom. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. For this project, I probably have worked with the most student researchers, and a lot of you guys are here. Lily, Sarah are working with me now. Fred, Chelsea just starting, but also Basha, Becca, the other Becca. And then there's a number of you here who worked on other projects, like Caitlin was a part of Strange Vegetation and Falling Still and Inhabited Fest when she was an undergrad here. You know, I mean, you just don't learn this stuff any other way. So, how many of you guys actually have been involved in undergraduate research here? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, some. Yeah, seek out those opportunities. It's really incredible. And if you see the range of projects that our colleagues, researchers, and students researchers do, it's just mind-blowing. So as a combination of this project, all forms will be transported back to, or transplanted back to Linden for a final installation. And that will really be largely be determined by the number of forms that are there at that point and how they develop. So my goal with this project was to transform this completely artificial thing. I was trying to use the most artificial thing I could think about, and this artificial manipulated material into this seemingly unchecked, feral, and opportunistic growth to visualize and punctuate reuse. Right? So it's I knew from the get-go that no matter how long I worked on it, no matter how many students helped, no matter how many people contributed to the workshops, we would just never be able to keep up with the refuse. I just had no idea to what extent, to what degree, and that's kind of mind-blowing. So, you know, I was trying to kind of punctuate and visualize reuse and juxtapose it with the super slow, methodical, labor-intensive making, but also play with control, precision, and craftiness. This is pretty crafty. We're currently preparing for an installation at the Milwaukee City Hall, and this is what the studio looks like sometimes in preparation for these installations. These things are literally on every available surface. And I didn't really ever anticipate a single project spanning such a long period of time, but kind of the slow production nature of this and the necessity for it to grow into a truly public space kind of necessitated the duration. So, City Hall soon. I've been also making some wearable pieces utilizing the same materials and processes developed for Grow. And I kind of made this work as a way to balance this durational project with, that's taken over 3 years and, you know, most of my life, with finishing some complete individual pieces. But I also just want to talk about how none of this work ever happens in a vacuum. It's been really important to my practice that I engage with other artists and researchers around me. I already mentioned undergraduate research. I have a long-standing relationship with artists and critics around me, and you know they range from having casual conversation to having regular studio visits to asking somebody for help and advice of something and giving feedback as well. I collaborate quite a bit, and I mean that's what really moves my practice forward. This particular body of work is Michael Bernard's fault. My colleague in jewelry and metalsmithing. He walked into my studio once and he picked up one of the grow forms and he said, "Can you make this smaller and black and wearable? Because I want to put it in a show. And I said, yes, I can. So, yeah, he just made this entire body of work happen, and he also photographed it. So, this is an image of Michael, too. So, you know, like making a rig in one night, yeah, that sounds pretty good after spending, you know, the last 3 years on this ginormous thing. You guys Jim took these images last night and edited them all. Thank you. Of the new work, I didn't have any images of this new stuff here. Well, in fact, any of the work I'm showing you, I'm not showing any work that was made before I met Jim, so he's kind of responsible for a lot of it. Thank you. So you can see I'm utilizing a lot of the same materials. This is that same leather-like surface and a lot of the same construction methods. Just using colored plastic bags now instead of just white plastic bags. And with this little line here, I'm trying to make objects that look deflated. Not quite sure I'm there yet. I'm like accomplishing flat pretty well. Deflated, we'll see. This is all the blue bags necklace, and it's good to crochet it out of all the blue bags we've collected over the last 3 years. It turns out blue is really rare in plastic bags, and in fireworks too. But you know, plastic bag is what we're working with here. It's super rare, but there are very many shades of it, and so this piece literally utilizes every single blue plastic bag that we've collected over 3 years. And next to it is a beautiful piece by Star in the recent show called Overlap. This is some of the red bags necklace, which I'm still working on, and it's made out of some of the red bags we've collected. Red's a lot more common, and if I made a piece out of all the red bags we've collected over 3 years, you probably wouldn't be able to lift it. But it's super common, but there's not nearly as many shades of it. So this is only 2 reds. This is Sandix red and the shiny red. What's the shiny red?
Speedball.
Speedball. Okay, so Speedball and Sandix red is what this is. But in general, in making jewelry, besides being really invested in material exploration, I am interested in cultural and social functions of the adornment. I'm really fascinated by craft objects, the function of craft objects beyond utility. And so with jewelry specifically, I'm interested in how it functions to signal things like identity, power, fraternity, and status, and how it has this ability to communicate ideas about the wearer and project the desired image. Much of how a piece of adornment functions is really determined by the materials and the value attributed to those materials. Pearls, for example, are highly valued and have different and sometimes diametrically opposing connotations: prestige, status, wealth, power, glamour, celebrity, purity, innocence, corruption, and seduction. Like the pearl operates as a cultural construct, or as a signifier of this cultural construct. And that's just fascinating. But considering what it really is, considering its origin, it's kind of a scar. It's this imperfection that's been elevated to the status of preciousness and prescribed a high monetary value. So for all of its kind of cultural conditions and historical stature, it has these very weird beginnings as an irritation or an anomaly. And so this series is trying to explore cultural value of precious pearls by transforming these kind of ugly freshwater pearls into an image of a large perfect pearl necklace. So they're sort of being manicured into this image that also is an object. That juxtaposition of the precious and non-precious material is meant to examine the cultural value of precious jewelry. And then I'm using strategies such as blanking something out or silhouetting it inflating, flattening, distorting the image in some sort. And so those strategies kind of transform the work into these iconic images of jewelry, even though they're not classic jewelry by any means. They're both literally and culturally images of a pearl necklace. This was in addition to the pearl necklace investigation, and this series utilizes altered images of a traditional pearl clasp and porcelain pearls. So the clasps themselves flatten, inflate, and gradate, deform sometimes. They lose their function in the transformation and become decorative elements. I think Frankie just got his CNC router when we first started doing this, and CNC'd all of the patterns that were then die formed and pierced by hand. So, another example of this work wouldn't happen without people around. And then I cast porcelain slip into these sort of approximations of pearls. And do you see any of the blue? It's super light. And so that, I'm thinking about them in pearls, and I'm thinking about the blues nacre. And so they gave that nacre by actually real freshwater pearls that have been crushed and then fired onto the surface of the porcelain at very high temperatures. So for those of you guys who work in clay, corn 13. So that's, the pearl is what's actually making that transparent blue glaze that you see. So the freshwater pearls kind of become these puddles of luster on a surface of these sort of soft-looking, slightly deformed, large round porcelain forms. So to me, taking those two materials, they're both precious, right? The pearl and porcelain, and fusing them together changes both and creates a new kind of jewel. In conclusion, through its various modes, my work is defined by my training in an applied tradition that is rich with historical formats, materials, and processes. My handling of the material is informed by my sensibilities that are relevant in making crafted craft object. The range of specific processes, methodologies, and materials enhance my ability to engage topics that are inherent to craft: durability, body, and function. The variety of these materials, formats, and process approaches allows me to address these concepts, ultimately resulting in a hybrid practice. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Well, what made you want to work with that nude latex color initially?
With what?
The nude latex color?
The latex
Yeah.
in the installation project or in the previous work?
In your previous work.
Well, I first started using rubber and latex when I was finishing grad school, and I was trying to make these body-related objects, and I was trying to make them out of metal, and I was trying to make them look like tin, and it just wasn't working. And so I thought I needed to use a material that really worked with those ideas better. So I was trying to create these bodily objects. So rubber and first latex and then rubber seemed like more appropriate materials. In the installation work, it was really because I wanted the volumes to expand, and that was the only material that would do that.
What would you recommend for like getting into interactive art as somebody who has not done that before?
Take a class here at UW. We have fantastic classes offered that really teach you all that stuff that I never learned, but I work with people who know it. Just physical computing class, that's really fantastic. Interactive art, there's a whole slew of classes that will teach you that curriculum.
Thank you. That was wonderful. You mentioned the word later when you were talking about strange vegetation, and if this doesn't mean anything to you, just ignore me about this. But you talked so much and so movingly about communication, and the breakdown of communication, but so many of the pieces to me implied breath. Now, I wondered if you would like to say something just about breath. Air. Or ignore.
I think in Inhabited Fest, I was using air as a way to connect our bodies to the space. And so I thought if there's these inflated volumes, you have to think about how that happened, right? We did inflate some little balloons physically, but then we used we used Caitlin's desk compressor and Lucy's compressor, and we actually inflated them. But I wanted that implication that a body went into making this, or into having this come into existence. And then with strange vegetation, it was a little different because it was about activating it and making the piece look like it's breathing itself. I have to think about that more.
So there in the earlier work, I mean, the inhalation of the mouth with the sense of inhalation as a life-sustaining force, what it's mean to share breath with someone else.
That's a great insight. Really rich. I haven't really thought through that, but thank you for that. This is why it's good to know connotations.
Are you still accepting the plastic bags currently, or are you going to continue this project?
Sure.
Because I
said it would.
Have you ever thought about the relationship with consumerism connected to plastic bags, or is that something that's kind of disconnected to your work?
Well, it's definitely a part of it, right? I mean, from the beginning, I said I'll accept all plastic bags that come my way, and people give them to me, and they put them in the plastic recycling bins, and can't really keep up. I think it's one of the aspects of the project. It's not the main focus of it, but it's definitely something that's there, that's implied. Especially because there's these small sculptures are so dense. It takes we make the sheet out of 4 plastic bags that are ironed together, right? The string out of which we crochet, that takes an insane amount of plastic bags to make. And then we stuff it full with plastic bags too, so they're really dense. There's a lot of plastic bags that go into one little object. Okay.
So I always knew that you were very versed across many different artistic types of practices, like curating, administrating, creating your own artwork, doing jewelry, doing installation, doing all these different things. Do you have I guess two-part question. How do you balance that? And then also educating. But then also, do you have a favorite part? And do you see them all kind of working together, or do they work separately? What do you think?
I don't think there's ever a balance. I don't know. I mean, I've been here for 14 years. It's my 18th year of teaching. I don't know that it's possible to get to any kind of balance in academia, but I think all of those parts make up a practice, though, right? And I would have to say, teaching is one of my favorite things too. It's one of the things that make up this larger practice, and it's something that I definitely missed when my teaching assignment was reduced to do my administrative assignment for 3 years, and it's something that really feeds me, for sure. But, I guess I just I finally figured out because I'm not really smart in terms of, I don't ever get to build on my own expertise, it's like, oh, for this idea, I need to learn how to, glue latex together. So there's always like a new material in the process to develop. The sensibilities transfer, but not the particular processes. But, for example, grow I developed before I took on an administrative assignment because I knew I had to have something that required my attention constantly, and I didn't really have a choice but to keep it going. And so I'm trying, now I'm trying to come up with strategies that, like this project I can do for 20 minutes at the end of the day on my couch, and I've never had a project that works like that. So, but yeah, if somebody figures out how to balance it, I'm all ears. Patrick.
Just for your basic studio practice, do you, when you're sort of thinking about a new idea, do you do a lot of sketching? Do you do, I would imagine maybe you just not really knowing, I would imagine you maybe forming things in clay or something, like those silicone pieces, and how do you start to conceptualize the piece?
I make a lot of lists. So, it first sort of starts to develop through writing, and then I do sketch things out, and then there's a lot of material exploration. So there's a lot of sampling. There's a lot of kind of studies before anything happens. So I would say, I don't really make models, but I make a lot of studies. If that makes sense. And then I talk to people.
It's funny because seeing the way that your grow project and the piece at the Villa Terrace developed, it's been kind of parallel to your gardening, and you guys have an urban farm, right, in your backyard, and I had never really connected those together, but they were kind of developing simultaneously, right?
Yeah.
The actual gardening and then the creating of these.
Yeah, they definitely have. And the Egyptian onion is in our garden, right? So the whole project is based on a plant from our garden. But I grew up in the city, and I always lived in the city, and so this house that we now live with a backyard, which is just like a regular city plot, it's the first time I have dirt around me, and so I've been there for quite a long time now, but it's the first time where I have this experience, like you put this in the ground and it grows and it's magical. And but I never really, I knew I was basing it on the garden to a degree, but I never thought about cultivating it and then tending to these things. Do you have a question?
Yeah, other than your colleagues, what other artists kind of influence your work and inspire you to push your own concepts?
So, when I talk about, sometimes I'll talk about a particular body of work, right, or I'll talk about a particular direction in my work, and I talk quite a bit about Alan Waxler's work and Noam Torren's work in relationship to the sculptural body extensions work, and both of those artists are in that show at Innova, and you can see it.
When you switched from castable rubber to the plastic bags, did ideas of a more healthful practice or a more economical sourcing materials, did either of those, did that? Some of those castable rubbers are really nauseous. Did either of those things, the health or the affordability of the new material, did that play a factor in how that project came about?
I would say just the sheer amount of cured rubber that I was creating was a problem for me. And you can reuse it, right? Like you can wash it and get the mold release off and cut it up and use it in other molds. But just even failed tests, there's so much cured rubber that I was producing that wasn't going anywhere. That was definitely a concern. And so latex was, those pieces don't exist anymore. That latex disintegrated. So if I wanted to show a piece like this again or make another iteration of it, I'd have to make it new. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily health concerns, but it was definitely concerns with accumulating these, like huge plastic and rubber things that I just didn't really want to have now.
Were you feeling guilty about how much like rubber you were?
Yeah.
Is this whole project a carbon offset thing for you?
I mean, I was feeling guilty to the point where whenever I would mix up rubber and cast it, I would have like yogurt container lids, and I would pour it into those anytime I was casting rubber if I had any left, and then I would give them out as like sets of coasters as presents. Lots of my friends have them. But I didn't figure that out to like halfway through into it, so otherwise there would be a lot of rubber coasters around, a lot more rubber coasters. Gotcha.
This might be a little bit of a trivial question, but it's just a personal one for you. And out of all the pieces, is there any one that is your favorite? I mean, like, if you had to say one that you just were like the most pumped about, which one of those out of all of them would it be? I know all of them do different things and they function differently, but if you just had to choose one.
That's really hard, because I'm also showing like, a portion of the work too.
Sure.
I mean, I would say the projects that I've done over the last few years, are, the project that I got to involve other people in, as collaborators or as student researchers, those have been my favorite experiences. So, so here the installation work, we have test, strength vegetation, grow, like those are experiences that have resonated the most with me. And then there's another here. Jessica.
So I love seeing the trajectory of your research, in a PowerPoint, hearing you talk about it. And I also am excited about the fact that this exhibition that you've been thinking about, how many years have you been thinking?
Probably like 10.
Yeah, like 10 years. So here, you have your studio space, you have your sketchbook, you're pinning up postcards and exhibition announcements of all of your favorites, all the heavy hitters that you've been admiring for so long. Now you have them in your house, right? In the gallery, they're all there, and I'm just wondering if your relationship with these artists and specifically the works, because I know it takes a lot of courage to reach out to these people and then to bring the works here too. If seeing them all in the space and seeing people interact with them as a whole in that space, if that, do you feel like that is also feeding, like that's kind of like, what's the relationship then in that space? And you might not be able to reflect on it because you just finished it. But do you feel like that is something that is going to inform your work moving into, say, a sabbatical year? Or
yeah, I mean, it's the work in that exhibition is really, well, I have to figure it out because I have to submit an essay for a catalog part, like by Sunday. Yeah. So I'll have to reflect on it very quickly here. But the work in that show is work that I've been looking at as parts of my own research that's old, right? Like Alan Waxler is old school. This is the work from the 90s. And so there's that, and then there's new work that I've been really excited about that I haven't really kind of built on in my own research. And so seeing it all together in one space is really incredible for me, but I also have no objectivity because I've been thinking about it for so long. Like, I think it's amazing and seeing that in space and seeing the relationships between the objects, but I just don't know if anybody else is as excited about it as I am. But yeah, but reaching out to people for this exhibition has also been incredible too. Like Alan Waxler, I wrote about in my thesis, right? So this is a long time ago now, and then I was like, could you please lend out an object for the show? And then it was like, yes, I would happily lend you these objects. It was just kind of amazing. And then, somebody like Naomi Doran, whose work has been really influential for me, and I encountered it for the first time at that show, Design and Elastic Mind, in New York a number of years ago, and it's the first time I saw it. We've since then brought him in as artists now, and so I didn't know anything about him as a person. I just thought the work was terrific, and so he's somebody now that I know. which is really incredible. And we weren't able to get any of the objects, which I was really interested in because most of them are like, in the collection in France. And he's in the Netherlands right now, and so he lent us the film, so. Is that answer? Are we good? Are we good?
You're good. The web's working. Can you show us the conference website?
Yeah. Well, I have it up on my screen, but it's not up there. I don't know.
Can you drag it to the side of the window? Can you drag it?
Oh,
Yay!
okay, look how beautiful this is. Right, there's lectures, and they're really incredible. So Kim Kreider's our keynote speaker, and she is having a solo exhibition at the Linden Sculpture Garden right now, and so the Linden Sculpture Garden is sponsoring her participation in this. Then, there's like all these other amazing people who are lecturing. David Clark is one of the artists in the Unfunction show, and he's coming from England to participate in the symposium. We have our Jewelry Forum representation, and a lot of Wisconsin educators as well as national people. So these are the lectures, the workshops. There are literally 27 workshops. It's a little insane, and they range from metalsmithing to blacksmithing to digital fabrication to immersive programming. We're going to go to Linden Sculpture Garden for one day, to the Chipstone House for one day, and then there's going to be another day as well. There are critical workshops conducted by our Jewelry Forum. It's just a huge range of things. Lots. There are 17 exhibitions, as we kind of talked about a little bit. So there's going to be just an incredible concentration of beautiful work and really interesting people. And you guys should all participate. And then here in details, there's the daily schedule where you can see the multitude of events that are going on at all times. Michael's
There's still quite a few seats in many of the workshops, and even if you don't want to do a full thing like that, we have all the exhibitions splitting into a Thursday night opening and a Friday night opening. Thursday night at Kenilworth, there's going to be, I think, 9 exhibitions that'll open. So it's Thursday, May 26th, and then Friday, May 27th, there's 7 or 8 that are opening on this campus as well. So this one's kind of a crawl between the Art Center Gallery, the Union, Special Collections Library, and then we'll have some student work on display in the Metals Studio as well. So even if you just wanted to come and see those shows, the 2 opening ones are pretty cool.
That's going to be great. You good?